it down. Go tail it down.
What if I told you that Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull almost never happened, nearly starred someone other than Robert De Niro, and relied on gallons of chocolate syrup to fake blood in the boxing ring? This isn't just a sports biopic. It's a movie born from obsession, risk, and experimentation. Today, we're stepping into the ring with weird facts about Raging Bull 1980 that will completely change the way you see this masterpiece. De Niro's passion project. Raging Bull exists almost entirely because of Robert De Niro's persistence. In the mid-1970s, De Niro came across Jake LaMotta's autobiography and was fascinated by the raw, brutal honesty of the boxer's life story. He believed it had the potential to be not just a sports movie, but a deep character study about self-destruction and redemption. De Niro repeatedly pushed Martin Scorsese to direct, even when Scorsese had no interest in boxing. The actor bought LaMotta's life rights and continued to bring the project up between films. Without De Niro's relentless lobbying, Raging Bull would likely never have been made. His passion wasn't just about playing a role, it was about exploring themes of rage, guilt, and masculinity through cinema. In many ways, De Niro willed Raging Bull into existence. Scorsese didn't want to do it. When De Niro first pitched the idea, Martin Scorsese had little interest in boxing. He felt the genre was already saturated after classics like Rocky. However, Scorsese's life took a dramatic turn. Following a severe health scare and hospitalization for drug-related complications, he began rethinking his approach to filmmaking and mortality. De Niro visited him during recovery and once again urged him to direct Raging Bull. This time, Scorsese saw the story differently, not as a sports film, but as an exploration of violence, jealousy, and self-destruction. In LaMotta's life, Scorsese found a metaphor for his own struggles. His personal connection to themes of rage, self-destruction, and redemption ultimately convinced him. The film became not just a biopic, but one of Scorsese's most personal works. Ironically, the project he initially rejected became one of his greatest masterpieces. Chocolate syrup blood. One of the strangest yet most effective tricks in Raging Bull was the use of chocolate syrup for blood. Because the movie was filmed in stark black and white, color accuracy wasn't necessary, so the crew could prioritize texture and consistency. Regular fake blood often looked too watery or light in monochrome. Chocolate syrup, on the other hand, had the perfect density and appeared shockingly real under harsh lighting. During the brutal boxing matches, gallons of syrup were sprayed, smeared, and splattered across the ring and fighters. The black and white cinematography turned the syrup into a nightmarishly convincing substitute for gore. This odd trick wasn't new. Alfred Hitchcock used chocolate syrup in Psycho's infamous shower scene. But Raging Bull elevated it, making the fights look gritty, visceral, and far more realistic. Few people realize that some of the most violent-looking scenes in cinema were fueled by dessert topping. De Niro gained 60 pounds. Perhaps the most famous fact about Raging Bull is Robert De Niro's shocking physical transformation. To play Jake LaMotta in his later years, De Niro halted production for several months and gained more than 60 pounds. He traveled through Europe, indulging in rich meals, pasta, pastries, and wine, intentionally letting his body balloon to match the aging, overweight version of LaMotta. This was groundbreaking at the time. Actors rarely altered themselves so drastically for a role. The change stunned the cast and crew, who had been filming with a lean, muscular De Niro just months before. His weight gain not only transformed his appearance, but also his physicality, slowing down his movements and changing his breathing, which added authenticity to LaMotta's decline. This extreme method acting later inspired generations of actors, proving the lengths performers would go for authenticity. Real punches in the ring. For realism, Robert De Niro insisted on taking and giving real punches during fight scenes. His co-star Joe Pesci, who played LaMotta's brother Joey, agreed to it, though reluctantly. The result? Pesci ended up with actual bruises, swollen ribs, and even a tooth chip during the shoot. De Niro wanted audiences to feel the raw violence of boxing, and pulling punches wouldn't capture that. Scorsese carefully choreographed each fight as a cinematic ballet of violence. But De Niro's demand for real hits made it even more authentic. The camera often stayed close, capturing sweat, spit, and pain in excruciating detail. While modern films rely heavily on stunt doubles and camera tricks, Raging Bull pushed its actors into real physical punishment for art. The result was a series of boxing scenes so raw and brutal that they remain unmatched decades later. Inventive sound effects. The sound design in Raging Bull is unlike any other boxing movie. Instead of sticking with traditional punching and crowd noises, Scorsese and his team experimented with animal sounds to heighten the brutality. Roars of lions, the snorts of horses, and even the screeches of birds were layered into fight effect. This gave the matches an almost primal, otherworldly atmosphere, emphasizing Jake LaMotta's animalistic rage inside the ring. The punches feel larger than life, echoing with the weight of something beyond human. Sound designer Frank Warner created an aural landscape that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. Most audiences didn't consciously notice the animal noises, but they felt them adding a strange, unsettling intensity to every blow. It was yet another way Raging Bull separated itself from the sports movie mold, transforming fights into cinematic expression, rather than mere athletic contests. An onlinear biopic. Most biopics follow a straightforward rise and fall structure. Raging Bull did something unusual for its time. It told Jake LaMotta's story out of sequence. The film begins with LaMotta in later years, overweight and broken, practicing his nightclub act. Then it jumps back to his younger days, showing the rise and eventual destruction of his boxing career. This fragmented structure created a haunting effect, showing the audience the tragic outcome before revealing the causes. Scorsese used this non-traditional approach to emphasize themes of memory, regret, and cyclical self-destruction. The non-linear style was unusual for a sports biopic in 1980, but it helped elevate the film into art. It wasn't just about boxing. It was about a man doomed by his flaws, told in pieces that mirrored his fractured life. Studio hated it. When Scorsese delivered Raging Bull to United Artists, executives were horrified. They thought the film was too violent, too bleak, and too artsy for mainstream audiences. The black and white cinematography, non-linear story, and shocking violence made them fear the movie would bomb financially. Some executives even suggested shelving the film entirely or releasing it with minimal promotion. But Robert De Niro and Scorsese fought for its release, insisting it was a work of art. Early test screenings confirmed the studio's fears. Audiences found it depressing and hard to watch. However, critics hailed it as a masterpiece, praising its artistry, performances, and daring direction. Over time, Raging Bull overcame its rocky studio reception and was embraced as one of the greatest films ever made. Ironically, the movie executives who hated it ended up distributing one of cinema's most celebrated classics. Oscar-winning transformation. Robert De Niro's performance in Raging Bull is widely considered one of the greatest in film history. His physical transformation from a ripped boxer to an overweight has-been was groundbreaking. But beyond appearance, his performance captured the raw complexity of Jake LaMotta. Brutal, paranoid, self-destructive, yet deeply human. The Academy recognized this commitment by awarding De Niro the Oscar for Best Actor in 1981. His win validated the risks taken by the film and set a new standard for method acting. Critics noted that De Niro didn't just play LaMotta, he became him, embodying his physicality, psychology, and downfall with terrifying realism. The Oscars cemented De Niro's reputation as one of the greatest actors of his generation, and solidified Raging Bull's status as a landmark in American cinema. Preservation honor. Despite its rocky release and mixed box office performance, Raging Bull quickly earned critical recognition. In 1990, just 10 years after its release, the Library of Congress selected the film for preservation in the National Film Registry, recognizing it as culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. This was one of the earliest honors of its kind, placing Raging Bull alongside classics like Citizen Kane and Casablanca. Today, it regularly tops lists of the greatest American films ever made, often ranked as Scorsese's best work. What began as a passion project resisted by studios and nearly dismissed as too violent is now considered essential cinema history. The preservation honor ensured that future generations will continue to study and experience Raging Bull as one of the most important artistic achievements in film.